We're live.
Okay, nice. I don't know why I sat there and stared at you for so long, but maybe it's your Captain America shirt. It's really cool, man.
Captain America's the weakest superhero. Don't at me.
No, I am not going to at you at that on that. I agree. Very iconic logo, but that's about all he has going for him. Welcome to WunderCAST, the show where we talk about business topics. We have a dual format. Some weeks we have guests, some weeks we don't. This is one of the weeks where we don't. So it's going to be myself and producer Alex, who you just heard speaking, and now he's drinking water as I'm introducing him. So I always do the intros at the best time.
Professionals.
Yes.
Highly professional.
Yes. And for today's topic, we're going to be talking about speed and perfection. Two things that don't necessarily go hand in hand with each other in like most contexts. Like usually you don't think about going fast and also being able to achieve perfection. Usually if you want it to be perfect, it's associated with it taking a lot of time. And if you want it to go fast, it's associated with it being sloppy. And there is some validity in that, but that's what I want to kind of talk about is that balance that you have to walk. And the speed perfection curve. You're hearing that here first. Dub that as a term right there. The speed production curve. Yes, right? Yeah, celebrate it up. Absolutely. But yeah, just kind of like how you factor in business, how can you go fast while also putting out a high quality product? And when should you tap the brakes a little bit and slow it down to do a better job. So with that being said, that was like the longest winded way of introing a topic I think I've ever done, but let's delve into it. So for us, for WunderTree, one thing that I prided us on early, in the early days was going very, very fast, but at the cost of when it was just me, I was able to go fast, but because it was just me, didn't have the quality standards that I wished that I had. And so now I think we're in a better place. We have more people on the team and there's more quality checks. We might not be able to move quite on a dime like we did back in the day, but we've shifted into what I think I'm getting to a place where I'm becoming very happy with our balance of speed and production quality. I'm always going to err on the side of speed, but I think I like where we're at right now. And that's where I'm going with this is that there's a lot of businesses out there that I know that if you're listening to this, this is probably you too, where you feel like you're not going fast enough and you're trying to be perfectionist. That's usually where most people are, is on the area of perfection. And I think that having done this myself, I don't think that you can take so much time. If you follow Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a influencer that talks a lot about this whole concept of speed and perfection. And he actually put out a meme of sorts the other day that was like a video graphic that him and his team had put together. And it was talking about somebody had an idea. They were trying to perfect the name. They were trying to perfect the product. While on the bottom half of the image, it was like a video clip of somebody else just having an idea and then putting a product out to market, getting customers. All the while it showed the top half of the image was the other video clip of this company the illustration was still like them in board meetings, trying to come up with the ideas, trying to do all of this other stuff. While the other company had a crappy name, but they were out there selling. And so the point he was trying to illustrate there was that you can get so lost in trying to be perfect that you let other people just go out and execute on the idea and they beat you to the punch. So that's really what I'm talking about when I talk about the speed to perfection curve is you have to have a high quality product. And I don't want to discount that, but you also have to just move quickly. You don't necessarily have the luxury, and especially in today's age where, post-COVID world where everything is heavily online and things are honestly moving faster than they ever have, you don't have the luxury of perfecting your product before it goes to market. You have to to put a good enough product out there that it's not going to get you a crap load of negative reviews, but then you have to kind of adopt this iterate mindset. Instead of trying to go from 0 to 100% overnight, you gotta go 1% better every single day. And I think I've said that, several times before on different episodes of this podcast, but that's really what it is like finding that balance of when is it time to go fast? What are the things I need to go fast on? And when is it time for me to take the time to put out something that's very high quality? So, Alex, at the sake of me rambling any longer, what are your thoughts on this?
See, this is a good point. This is a good segue for me because I feel like I'm kind of the opposite to your point earlier where you were talking about being more speed oriented. I appreciate doing things fast, and I feel like, not to toot my own horn, I can do things relatively fast compared to what most people can do. That's kind of what my strength was early on in my career. But as I've kind of evolved and realized that speed can be nice, but it also is nice to get things out with the proper quality. So I feel like we're two sides of the same coin here in the same regard that I prefer quality and a little bit of more, to reference an earlier episode, patience, rather than going at it full speed, because that's when, specifically for me, I'm bound to trip up and make mistakes. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think that's the great debate here. That's why we're talking about the speed to perfection curve. Where's my sound effect at? I want my sound effect again. Yes, I came up with that. I want my I think I came up with it anyway, so I want my praise.
I'll make that a sound cue every time that comes up. Every time I catch it.
Okay, sounds good. We're gonna start with the freaking doing a counter of how many times I say that in today's episode. But that's why I think it is a very contrasting thing. Speed is it's not the enemy of perfection, but it is on the other side of the coin, like you said. I think that was a great way of putting it. So how does all of that pertain to your business if you're out there listening to this? Well, I think it comes down to awareness. When is the time to go fast? When is the time to sit in the boardroom and come up with the perfect idea before you go to before you go to market? And honestly, those are kind of very, very extreme situations. There's almost like you almost need to be in the middle, 95% of the time, be in the middle of that discussion on all things. Like, don't necessarily take, all the time in the world to try to get it perfect. Push something out, but also don't just push out a very raw idea. See, a practical thing that I can speak to is in the past, we have pushed out ideas before they were ready to go. And like, again, it's cool to go to market with an idea, but you can be too fast. And we used to be too fast, especially when it was just me and I would come up with an idea in the moment and then be trying to act on that thing 10 minutes later. I'd follow my idea and then not get the work done that was at hand. And then I was chasing this idea that I had not even like an eighth of the way fleshed out to what it could have been. And then I spent like a few hours on it and it ended up not working. And so I pretty much just wasted that time. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that's a lot of people's mindset at the beginning of starting a business. You're either like I was, where you go really fast, or you're on the other end where you go so slow that people beat you all the time because you're taking forever to push something out. So really the right answer is you need speed and perfection, and that has to happen somewhere in the middle. You have to recognize that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward, because the world is always moving around you. So even if you think you're standing still, you're not. People are passing you. You might just not notice it. And so you have to constantly be putting new things out and moving quickly. Try to put new ideas out in. See, I think a good thing, I used to try to put ideas out in days. And then I think some people try to put them out in months. And honestly, I think ideas might need to be like weeks to a handful of months, not necessarily, 18 months or 24 months. Like that's kind of like, practically speaking, I think the right amount of time from the time an idea is birthed the time it should be seeing the light of day if it's been decided upon something that you're executing on. I think anywhere between probably 3 to 4 weeks to 3 months. Like to me, that sounds like a happy balance. And like once you get something out there, then you can iterate it over time, maybe over the course of 18 to 24 months. I don't know, but that's really kind of the happy medium for me, is like something that can be done within a quarter. If we have the idea today and we all know it's something that we want to do, it should be starting to see the light of day, even in a very early format, which is called an MVP, or a minimum viable product. That's like a term that came from the tech app development world. And, we use it up here quite frequently, and I think it's becoming more widely adopted. But have an idea, go out there with an MVP, and then iterate on that. That's the way that you have to go with this speed to perfection thing. The MVP is something that's good enough to serve the purpose, but it's only a part of what it will one day be, but it gives you the chance to go to market and iterate over time. So Alex, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Well, not necessarily to be combative, but I think that there's to me, I've always looked at it from an evolution mindset. So while you see it, and this is totally fine, while you see it from a time standpoint, I see it as implement it when you can, but evolve it. It's going to need tweaks 95% of the time. If you come up with something perfect right off the bat and it's in the second week of iteration, it's still working smooth and there's no bumps in it, you've made something great. Congratulations. I've always looked at it from the standpoint of, well, we can push something out, but let's make sure that it takes the time. We take the time to tweak it and make sure that it fits the right mold for what we want it to be. Because I think there's a lot of that going on where people just kind of throw something out there and they're like, well, that's just the way we've always done it. And they came up with it quick, or they came up with it in a certain amount of time, and they think that because they spent that much time on it, that it was, something that they invested any time into, that it was worth the time invested, not necessarily, evolving with it though. They keep it the same way. They don't realize, hey, this is where it needs to go. This is where we want it to go to make it sound like us. That may or may not make any sense to whoever's listening to that, including the host of the show across from me. But I've just always looked at it from that perspective. And I think that not necessarily that you want to take ample amounts of time on it, but the more time you spend on it, the more time you can craft it into something you want it to be, thus leaning further towards perfection rather than speed.
Yeah. I followed most of what you were saying there for sure.
Yeah, it was a little. Sometimes I do that.
It's all good. Now, I definitely understand where you're coming from on that. The term you used there, evolving with the idea, I think that's important. And what you were saying, or what I think you were trying to say there, was people will run with ideas that they had because they feel like they put some kind of effort into it. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like you've spent 10 years using an idea that you came up with in 10 hours, and at the time that 10 hours felt like a lot, but now over the course of 10 years, that 10 hours was nothing.
Exactly.
That's what you're trying to say. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty apt way to describe what I was trying to go at, but I think that's exactly what it is. It's just, you want to evolve with it. You may have come up with it in 10 hours in the course of 2 days, but the course of 10 hours over 2 years is much different in that regard. So
yes. And that, I think that's good. Like, not to toot my own horn here, but I do feel like I'm one to be okay. Like I'm not okay with changing my ideas until the moment I am okay with changing my ideas. And then I'm okay with just totally abandoning it. Like a good example, for a while, we spent a lot of time. Well, in the course of our 5-year history, we spent about 18 to 24 months working on an app. And so that's still a lot of time in the grand scheme of our company's history. And so we spent all that time, and I spent a lot of money to develop that, and then it just wasn't going where it needed to go. So I moved off of it because it ended up not being what I thought the idea was. what I could have said, and actually what was said several times in different discussions with people I was having was, well, we've come this far to only go this far type of mentality. And it's like, well, yeah, but if we just continue to go further, then we're just wasting that time too. So yeah, the way all of this ties together is you've got to put out that minimal viable product and evolve with it. Don't say like, don't let the idea stay at the MVP. I think that's kind of what Alex was saying a little bit, was like, it might take you 10 hours to develop your MVP, but don't let it just stay there because it took you 10 hours to do that. Develop with the idea and continue to take it beyond just the MVP stage and let it evolve with you and drive towards that perfection, right? Always be working towards perfection, but be iterating in speed. I think that right there is the perfect balance, right? If you have this mindset of it's never going to be perfect, but you strive towards that, and then you iterate and you make changes and you adapt as you get feedback. If you don't sit on that for months on end or years on end, you make those changes in the micro and you focus on perfection in the macro. I think that's the perfect balance here on the speed perfection curve. There it is. Alex is on top of it. I kind of set him up for that a little bit. But now that we've kind of talked about that, we'll circle back around to it as we always do. But I want to jump over to asking Alex what's a brand that he enjoys, things like that, like we like to try to do. So Alex, what's a brand that you enjoy right now?
That's a tough question. I've kind of been on this path of website stuff lately, and with that being said, the thing that I've kind of been following, which is, I don't know if you can call it a brand. I guess you can, but it's a brand that promotes branding, which is Dribble. Dribble.com. The more I look at their aesthetic and things like that, the more I realize like they've got it down. Obviously, I mean, they're promoting people's branding, so it's hard to promote people's branding and not be good at it. So that's my go-to for right now at the moment, at least.
Yeah. And I think one thing about Dribble that I like is that because they are promoting other people's brands, they do a good job of like having a brand that stays out of the way. Like the Dribble brand is really cool, but they do a good job of not letting their brand get in the way of the other brands they're trying to showcase.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's very much subtle in the sense that it's not overpowering everybody else's work, which, I mean, that's their whole website scheme, is to showcase everybody else. Mm-hmm. But also make it easy to look at. And they do a pretty good job of that. Yeah.
Now, I've got to say, I'm surprised that you didn't pick ERCOT.
Oh, Lord.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Yes.
Is how most of Texas feels at the moment.
Yes. So, when we're recording this is right in the middle of that snowpocalypse, cold snap, whatever you want to call it, that we ran into in Texas. And so it's warmer today. That's not to say that it's still that warm, but it's warmer today.
20 degrees.
Yeah, it's 20 degrees, which, can you believe, is freaking like
That's
6 times warmer than it was on Monday or something like that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, especially for down here. To be fair, I didn't even know ERCOT existed until all this happened. So, shout out to ERCOT.
Yes. Also, too, and I'm not going to go into politics on this, but I'm not sure. I know a lot of people look to place blame on something, but I'm not sure if ERCOT is actually the culprit. I'm sure they're a piece of the puzzle for sure, but I think they're probably catching some unnecessary flack.
Sure, absolutely. I think there's a lot of that going around where there's bits and pieces that are all tying together, and somebody just has to latch. That's the culture we're in, so latch onto the blame for something. Somebody has to take the blame for it, and ERCOT probably, I don't know, maybe they do have something to do with it, but
or AT&T. I'm surprised you didn't say them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Alex's internet provider, and he hasn't been.
But to be fair to AT&T, it's not like we've had much else success with the local brand internet providers.
Yes. Yeah. I see Alex.
Hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Yeah, I see Alex is in a fit of rage. Yes. Oh man, good stuff. See, this is why we do this little transition, breaks it up from the speed perfection curve a little bit, you know. But yeah, so that's I'm glad you brought that up. I think for my little segment that I like to do here, kind of talking about something that's underrated or not talked about enough right now, honestly has been the whole topic of this discussion is the speed perfection curve. That's why we're talking about it. Just so you know, Alex, you missed one earlier. I said it.
Shocked.
I said it a few seconds ago and you missed it. But anyway, yeah, so just really focusing on when to go fast, when to be perfect, putting out that minimal viable product. Not enough businesses are focusing on putting out an MVP, and they should be. So yeah, with that being said, to kind of put a nice little bow on this episode here, if you're listening to this episode and you've made it this far into it, first off, thank you and congratulations. I know I rambled a lot, but the point is it's okay to go fast and maybe not put out the best product at first. Just focus on that. And then it's okay to, maybe be trying to strive for perfection and maybe get beat on a few things. The idea for business is to just always be learning and evolving. So yeah, with that being said, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Alex, any parting words?
Nope, nothing in particular.
All right. Well, thanks for catching this episode. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.